In 1966, they were the ultimate icons of grit and brotherhood. But half a century later, the dust has settled on the desert plains of the professionals. Where are the legendary stars who defied the odds? Some found eternal glory, while others faced heartbreaking ends. Prepare for a tear-jerking journey as we reveal the shocking transformations and the somber reality of what remains of this timeless cinematic masterpiece. Burt Lancaster as Bill Dalworth, born on November 2, 1913 in Manhattan, New York City, the former circus acrobat brought his immense physical presence to the screen in 1966's The Professionals. At the age of 52, Lancaster's portrayal of the cynical, charming explosives expert Bill Dalworth was a massive critical and commercial success. The role helped redefine the traditional Western genre, showcasing a grittier, morally ambiguous, yet profoundly loyal hero that resonated deeply with 1960s audiences. His dynamic performance cemented his status as a legendary leading man, capable of blending rugged athletic action with highly nuanced character work. Despite the character's easygoing charm and relaxed camaraderie on screen, Burt Lancaster's real-life personality was famously intense, demanding, and fiercely intellectual. Often described as uncompromising and occasionally hot-tempered, he frequently clashed with directors and studio executives, presenting a sharp contrast to Dalworth's pragmatic and cynical acceptance of the world. Professionally, Lancaster battled throughout his career against being typecast as merely a muscular, swashbuckling action star, actively financing and seeking out challenging uncommercial roles to prove his dramatic range. As he aged, he also faced the inevitable hardship of a shifting Hollywood landscape, struggling at times to maintain his box office draw and secure suitable leading roles as the traditional studio system collapsed and audience tastes rapidly changed. Lancaster successfully navigated his later years by taking on prestigious European art house films and acclaimed character roles, earning a Best Actor Oscar nomination for Atlantic City, 1980, and delivering a memorable final cinematic performance as Dr. Moonlight Graham in Field of Dreams, 1989. A lifelong progressive activist, he was married 3 times and raised 5 children. Tragically, his legendary physical vitality was stolen when a severe stroke in November 1990 left him partially paralyzed and largely unable to speak, abruptly ending his storied acting career. Lancaster passed away in his Century City apartment in Los Angeles on October 20, 1994, at the age of 80 from a fatal heart attack. In accordance with his deeply private nature in his final years, he explicitly requested that no memorial or funeral service be held, and his ashes were quietly interred under a large oak tree at Westwood Memorial Park. Lee Marvin as Henry Rico Farden, born on February 19, 1924 in New York City, the rugged actor took on the role of the pragmatic weapons expert and tactician in the acclaimed 1966 Western The Professionals. At the age of 42, Marvin's portrayal of Henry Rico Farden helped solidify his status as a premier leading man of gritty action cinema. Following his Oscar win for Cat Ballou the previous year, this performance further cemented his image as the ultimate cinematic tough guy. The film was a massive box office and critical success, earning multiple Academy Award nominations, and helping to define the popular men-on-a-mission genre that would soon dominate the era. While Marvin effortlessly embodied stoic, hardened, and highly disciplined characters like Rico Farden on screen, his real life was far more complicated and emotionally scarred. A decorated U.S. Marine who was severely wounded in the Battle of Saipan during World War II, Marvin suffered from profound survivor's guilt and the lingering effects of combat trauma. This internal pain fueled the dark, quiet intensity of his performances, but also drove him to battle severe alcoholism throughout his career. Professionally, he often found himself typecast as violent anti-heroes or cynical villains, which sometimes limited his artistic range. Furthermore, his personal life became the subject of a highly publicized and grueling legal hardship when his former live-in girlfriend, Michelle Triola, sued him in a landmark 1970s court case that established the concept of palimony, a saga that took a heavy toll on his privacy and public image. Marvin continued to work steadily in his later years, headlining iconic films like Point Blank, The Dirty Dozen, and Samuel Fuller's deeply personal World War II epic, The Big Red One. Seeking a quieter life away from the Hollywood glare, he moved to Tucson, Arizona with his second wife, Pamela Feely, whom he married in 1970. Despite declining health due to years of heavy drinking and smoking, he remained a respected and working figure in the industry until the very end. Lee Marvin passed away at the Tucson Medical Center on August 29, 1987, at the age of 63 from a sudden heart attack. In a fitting tribute to his life and service, the legendary actor was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery, where a simple, standardized military gravestone marks the final resting place of a man who served his country with as much intensity as he brought to the silver screen. Claudia Cardinale as Maria Grant. Born on April 15, 1938, in La Goulette, French Protectorate of Tunisia, the Italian-Tunisian actress first captured international attention before starring in the 1966 Western epic, The Professionals. At the age of 28, Cardinale's portrayal of Maria Grant, the supposedly kidnapped wife of a wealthy Texan who turns out to be a fierce, passionate woman willingly in love with a Mexican revolutionary, became a memorable cinematic triumph. Her performance challenged the traditional damsel in distress trope of the era, offering a layered depiction of female agency and romantic defiance that solidified her status as an international star and one of the 1960s most magnetic leading ladies. Despite the fiery, confident, and highly sensual nature of Maria Grant and many of her other famous roles, Claudia Cardinale was naturally shy, deeply private, and often felt out of place in the glittering world of cinema. This contrast was a recurring theme in her personal life. She found her early status as a global sex symbol to be an uncomfortable burden. Her career was also marked by the immense professional struggle of being tightly controlled by producer Franco Cristaldi, who managed her career down to her weight, her hair, and her public appearances. Under this restrictive contract, she was forced to hide her out-of-wedlock son by passing him off as her younger brother to protect her box office appeal. Furthermore, she frequently battled being typecast strictly for her exotic beauty, and because she grew up speaking French, Arabic, and Sicilian dialect, she endured the frustration of having her naturally raspy voice dubbed over in her early Italian films. Claudia Cardinale eventually broke free from her restrictive early contracts and chose to focus primarily on European cinema, famously turning down long-term Hollywood studio deals to pursue richer, more complex roles in France and Italy. Off-screen, she shared a long and meaningful partnership with Italian filmmaker Pasquale Squitieri, had a daughter, and became a passionate advocate for women's rights and environmental causes as a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador. She continued acting well into her 80s before stepping back from the public eye following complications from a 2019 hip surgery. Cardinale passed away peacefully from natural causes at her home in Nemours, France, on September 23, 2025, at the age of 87. Her death was met with widespread mourning from global leaders and film fans alike, and in accordance with French privacy laws, she was given a quiet, private farewell surrounded by her children, leaving behind a legacy as one of the true legends of European cinema. Jack Palance as Jesus Raza. Born Vladimir Palahniuk on February 18, 1919 in Latimer Mines, Pennsylvania, the towering actor first brought the complex Mexican revolutionary Jesus Raza to life in the 1966 Western classic, The Professionals. At the age of 47, Palance's portrayal of the charismatic but ruthless rebel leader became a standout performance, elevating the standard Western antagonist into a layered figure of political idealism and faded loyalties. The critically acclaimed film was a massive box office success, further cementing his cultural impact as one of cinema's most formidable, intense, and captivating on-screen presences. Despite the rugged, fearsome characters and cold-blooded killers he so famously portrayed, Jack Palance was in reality a deeply sensitive intellectual who contrasted sharply with his violent on-screen personas. A former professional boxer and decorated World War II bomber pilot whose distinct, taut facial features were largely the result of combat injuries and reconstructive surgery. Palance was a soft-spoken poet, an avid painter, and a man who spoke 6 languages fluently. This stark contrast became a source of significant professional frustration. His intimidating physical stature and brooding visage led to severe typecasting. For much of his career, he struggled against being confined to the role of the menacing, heavy, often expressing disappointment that Hollywood rarely allowed him to showcase his gentler dramatic or comedic range. Palance eventually broke free of his villainous mold in his later years, most notably winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his comedic turn as Curly Washburn in the 1991 hit City Slickers, where his iconic one-armed push-ups on the Oscar stage at age 73 became legendary. He spent his twilight years largely out of the Hollywood spotlight, dedicating his time to painting, publishing a book of his own poetry, and enjoying life on his ranches in California and Pennsylvania with his family. Palance passed away peacefully at his daughter's home in Montecito, California, on November 10, 2006, at the age of 87 from natural causes. Following his death, an estate auction saw his vast collection of art, poetry, and film memorabilia dispersed to fans and collectors, leaving behind the enduring legacy of a fearsome cinematic tough guy who was at heart a gentle and multi-talented artist. Robert Ryan as Hans Ehrengard. Born on November 11, 1909, the Chicago, Illinois native brought a weary but principled gravitas to his career before joining the ensemble cast of the revisionist Western The Professionals. At the age of 56, Ryan's portrayal of Hans Ehrengard, a rugged horse specialist and former cavalryman with a deep compassion for animals, became a standout element of the 1966 masterpiece, offering a complex depiction of a cynical, yet moral mercenary. The film was a massive box office hit and a critical success, earning multiple Academy Award nominations and defining a character that remains an essential part of one of the decade's most celebrated action-adventure classics. Despite his character's rugged exteriors and his career-long reputation for playing hardened anti-heroes and ruthless villains, Robert Ryan was intensely private, a gentle pacifist, and described by those who knew him as the polar opposite of his menacing cinematic alter egos. This contrast was a significant part of his personal journey. As a staunch liberal and civil rights crusader, he found tapping into dark, bigoted, and aggressively violent personas to be a profound emotional challenge. His career was also marked by the struggle of being heavily typecast, which for periods made it difficult for him to find work outside of the tough guy mold. The industry's insistence on casting him as a heavy brought a professional sting, often frustrating his artistic ambitions and limiting his opportunities to showcase the broader empathetic range he genuinely possessed. Robert Ryan continued to work in film and theater for several years, actively dedicating his time outside of acting to progressive causes, including co-founding the Progressive Oakwood School and advocating for anti-nuclear groups and the ACLU. He delivered powerhouse performances in later classics like The Wild Bunch, though his personal life was marked by profound heartbreak when his beloved wife of over 30 years, Jessica, passed away from cancer in 1972. His final on-screen role came alongside Lee Marvin in the 1973 film adaptation of The Iceman Cometh. Ryan passed away in New York City, New York, on July 11, 1973, at the age of 63 from lung cancer. His death was followed by widespread critical acclaim for his final performances, earning him several posthumous awards and cementing his enduring legacy as one of Hollywood's most principled and brilliantly complex talents. Woody Strode as Jake Sharp. Born on July 25, 1914 in Los Angeles, California, the former decathlete and football star first brought his athletic prowess to the screen before cementing his cinematic legacy. At the age of 52, Strode's portrayal of the highly skilled tracker and master bowman in the 1966 classic The Professionals became a significant cultural touchstone. The character showcased his remarkable physicality and commanding screen presence, proving crucial to the film's immense success, and solidifying Strode as a pioneering African-American action star who boldly challenged the predominantly white landscape of Hollywood westerns. Despite the stoic, rugged, and often intimidating nature of the characters he played, Woody Strode was an intensely articulate, deeply intelligent, and gentle man, offering a sharp contrast to the silent warrior archetype he was so famous for portraying. Professionally, his career was marked by the pervasive struggle of being typecast in an era of deeply entrenched industry prejudice. Hollywood frequently limited him to one-dimensional roles as the noble savage, the exotic foreigner, or the imposing heavy, making it incredibly difficult for him to secure the complex, dialogue-rich dramatic parts his true talents deserved. Woody Strode continued to work steadily in both American and international films for decades, famously finding better opportunities and creative respect in European cinema, such as his iconic turn in the Italian spaghetti western, Once Upon a Time in the West. He was a devoted family man who remained married to his wife Luana for nearly 40 years until her passing in 1980. Strode passed away at his home in Glendora, California, on December 31, 1994, at the age of 80, after a battle with lung cancer. His death marked the end of a pioneering era, and his final performance in the 1995 western The Quick and the Dead was released posthumously, with the film poignantly dedicated to his memory to honor his towering legacy in the genre. Ralph Bellamy as Joe Grant. Born on June 17, 1904 in Chicago, Illinois, the prolific stage and screen actor first took on the role of J.W. Joe Grant in the hit 1966 revisionist western The Professionals. At the age of 62, Bellamy's portrayal of the wealthy and ruthless Texas oil tycoon who hires a group of mercenaries to rescue his supposedly kidnapped wife stood as a powerful subversion of the genre's tropes. The character's cultural impact was significant, representing the cold, entitled, and deceitful capitalist whose immense power ultimately proved hollow when the truth of his wife's willing departure was revealed. His commanding performance anchored one of the most critically acclaimed and celebrated action films of the decade. Despite playing the deceitful and aggressively possessive antagonist, Joe Grant Ralph Bellamy was widely beloved in the industry and possessed a warm, humble, and deeply decent off-screen personality. This dark, villainous turn was a stark contrast to the trajectory of his early career, which was defined by a very specific professional struggle, intense typecasting. For years, he was consistently boxed into playing the naive, amiable, but ultimately dull other man, who always loses the leading lady to stars like Cary Grant, a trope so ubiquitous that Hollywood literally coined the phrase, the Ralph Bellamy part. Frustrated by this creative confinement and the difficulty of finding leading dramatic work in film, he famously abandoned Hollywood in the 1940s to return to Broadway, where he had to fight to prove his gravitas before ultimately reinventing his career and breaking the mold. Ralph Bellamy continued to enjoy a legendary multi-decade career in television, film, and theater, notably returning to the screen to portray Franklin D. Roosevelt in the miniseries The Winds of War, and the kindly corporate magnate James Morse in the 1990 blockbuster Pretty Woman. Married 4 times throughout his life, he was a deeply respected industry titan who helped found the Screen Actors Guild and served 4 terms as the president of Actors Equity. In recognition of his immense contributions to the profession, he was awarded an honorary Academy Award in 1987. Bellamy passed away at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California, on November 29, 1991, at the age of 87 from respiratory failure caused by a lung illness. His passing marked the end of a monumental era in Hollywood history, and he was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most enduring actors of his generation. Marie Gomez as Chiquita. Born in 1938 in France with her exact birth date kept famously private, the French-Spanish starlet first began her career as a model and stage performer before making her way to Hollywood. At the age of 28, Gomez's portrayal of the rifle-toting revolutionary Chiquita in the 1966 Western classic The Professionals became a massive success. Her performance earned her a Golden Globe nomination for Most Promising Newcomer and left a lasting cultural impact. Chiquita offered a cinematic depiction of a fiercely independent, action-oriented female character who effortlessly held her own in a male-dominated genre, defining a role that remains one of Western cinema's most memorable figures. Despite the character's bombastic, extroverted, and morally ambiguous nature, Marie Gomez was intensely private, deeply faithful, and described by those who knew her as the polar opposite of the revolutionaries and women of dubious virtue she played on screen. A staunchly Christian woman, she found playing these deliberately sultry characters to be a unique challenge. Her career was also marked by the struggle of being heavily typecast as the exotic, fiery bandito, which made it increasingly difficult for her to find diverse work after her initial splash. The shifting landscape of Westerns and the cancellation of shows she frequently guest-starred on brought a professional sting, severely limiting her opportunities and ultimately causing her to quietly vanish from the entertainment industry after her final screen credit in 1970. Marie Gomez stepped away from the limelight for decades, choosing to focus her energy entirely on humanitarian efforts rather than the entertainment industry. She spearheaded a relief project for Mexican orphans for over 11 years and dedicated much of her time volunteering for the Lord's Lighthouse Cross-Cultural Ministry at the Hollywood Presbyterian Church, serving hot meals and providing spiritual support to the impoverished. She briefly resurfaced in the mid-2000s to film interview extras for the DVD release of The Professionals and attended a 40th anniversary cast reunion for The High Chaparral in 2007. As of 2026, at the age of 88, she remains completely retired from acting, living a quiet, faithful, and intensely private life away from the Hollywood spotlight. Jorge Martinez de Hoyos as Eduardo Padilla. Born on September 25, 1920, in Mexico City, Mexico, the veteran actor brought Eduardo Padilla to life in the 1966 Western classic, The Professionals. At the age of 46, Martinez de Hoyos' portrayal of the rugged goatkeeper added a crucial layer of authenticity and grounded realism to the gritty cinematic adventure. The film became a massive box office success and received widespread acclaim with his supporting performance, highlighting the significant cultural impact of Latin American actors who were bridging the gap into prominent Hollywood ensembles during that era, leaving a lasting mark on the Western genre. Despite frequently playing hardened rural peasants, rustic locals, or outlaws in American Westerns, Jorge Martinez de Hoyos was deeply intellectual and cultured in real life. Before fully dedicating himself to the arts, he studied law at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México UNAM, and later honed his craft in Paris on a theater scholarship. A major professional struggle he faced throughout his international career was the heavy burden of Hollywood typecasting. While American productions frequently relegated him to limited stereotypical roles, he fought against this creative ceiling by maintaining a wildly successful parallel career in his home country. In Mexico, his profound dramatic range allowed him to escape these borders, establishing him as a respected leading man and earning him prestigious honors including Ariel Awards and Diosas de Plata. Martinez de Hoyos continued to work prolifically in Mexican cinema and television for decades, earning late career acclaim for his roles in popular telenovelas like El Abuelo y Yo and Pueblo Chico Infierno Grande. Off-screen, he enjoyed a stable personal life, remaining devotedly married to fellow actress Alicia Caro from 1965 until the end of his days. Jorge Martinez de Hoyos passed away in his hometown of Mexico City on May 6, 1997, at the age of 76 from lung cancer. His death marked the loss of a cinematic titan, prompting widespread mourning across the industry, and his legacy remains etched in golden letters as a foundational pillar of Mexican theater and film. Vaughn Taylor as banker. Born on February 22, 1910 in Boston, Massachusetts, The accomplished stage and screen actor first brought his distinct presence to Hollywood after serving in World War II. At the age of 56, Taylor's portrayal of the banker in the acclaimed 1966 epic Western The Professionals added a memorable layer of cold corporate pragmatism to the classic film. As the meticulous financier handling the immense wealth of the ruthless Mr. Grant, his character highlighted the deep-pocketed capitalist forces that bankrolled the violent exploits of the Old West. Though it was a supporting part, his performance contributed to a film that became a monumental critical and commercial success, earning 3 Academy Award nominations and enduring as a defining masterpiece of its genre. Despite frequently playing rigid, cowardly, or strictly numbers-driven characters like the banker Vaughn Taylor, was a remarkably brave, warm, and multifaceted man in real life. A graduate of Northeastern University, he actually studied accounting before pivoting to his true passion for the stage, and later served his country honorably as an officer in military intelligence during World War II. However, his professional acting journey was heavily marked by a constant struggle against severe typecasting. With his slender frame, scholarly demeanor, and signature pencil-thin mustache, Taylor found it incredibly difficult to break out of the rigid character-actor molds Hollywood placed him in. He was perpetually pigeonholed as the nervous, white-collar professional weary doctor or stodgy executive, an obstacle that made it difficult for him to secure leading roles and forced him to navigate decades of minor, repetitive bit parts rather than fully showcasing his broader, dramatic capabilities. Taylor remained a highly prolific and respected character actor throughout his later years, becoming a familiar face in American households with extensive television work on legendary shows like The Twilight Zone, Perry Mason, and Gunsmoke, alongside his iconic film turn as Janet Leigh's employer in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. He stayed out of the Hollywood limelight, living a quiet, personal life, and remaining happily married to his wife, Broadway actress and radio personality Ruth Moss, until his retirement from screen acting in 1976. Vaughn Taylor passed away at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, California on April 26, 1983, at the age of 73, from a cerebral hemorrhage. His passing marked the quiet end of one of the mid-20th century's most dependable supporting talents, occurring just 2 months before the theatrical release of Psycho 2, an aftermath that served as a poignant reminder to audiences of the enduring cinematic legacy he helped build. Joe DeSantis as Ortega. Born on June 15, 1909. The New York City native first brought Ortega to life in the acclaimed 1966 Western movie The Professionals. At the age of 57, DeSantis's portrayal of the rugged rebel fighter became an integral part of a cinematic standout, offering a gritty depiction of the Mexican Revolution that was both thrilling and significant. As part of an all-star cast, his performance contributed to a cultural touchstone that helped redefine the Western genre for a modern era, becoming a massive commercial success and earning 3 Academy Award nominations. Despite the character's hardened, rough-hewn bandit nature, Joe DeSantis was a highly educated intellectual described by those who knew him as the polar opposite of his on-screen personas. This contrast was a significant part of his personal journey. As a fluent Italian speaker, an accomplished sculptor, and a former instructor at New York University, he found playing uneducated outlaws to be a stark departure from his refined reality. His career was heavily marked by the struggle of being typecast, which for decades relegated him to playing generic ethnic villains, mobsters, or henchmen. This industry stereotyping brought a professional sting of its own, limiting his creative opportunities and making it difficult for him to secure the nuanced leading roles his extensive classical theatrical background deserved. Joe DeSantis continued to work in television and film for decades, navigating a busy personal life that included 3 marriages and raising 2 children. He took on numerous memorable guest-starring roles in classic television series like Bonanza and The Fugitive, and he was even notably honored by being listed in the liner notes of Frank Zappa's 1966 debut album, Freak Out. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, he remained dedicated to his craft, with his final on-screen performance coming in the 1987 historical film How Rare a Possession. Santis passed away in Provo, Utah on August 30th, 1989, at the age of 80, from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. His death marked the quiet conclusion of a massive 50-year career, leaving behind a vast body of work that cemented him as one of Hollywood's most reliable and hard-working character actors. Watching the stars of 1966 age is a poignant reminder of our own fleeting seasons. These actors did not just play roles. They defined a genre of rugged masculinity and cinematic excellence that still resonates today. Their legacy is etched in celluloid forever, surviving the passage of decades. If this trip down memory lane touched your heart, please give this video a like and help us keep these legends alive.